just want to do a little bit of an introduction as who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm currently a web engineer at ASOS. So I work as part of the BAG team. I'm also a leadership and management apprentice. So ASOS kindly put me on a program called the Growing Greatness program, which is all about leadership skills and just really beneficial skills that I can sort of bring back to my team. And also then hopefully helps my future career as an engineering manager, which is what I'm sort of aspiring to be.
We'll get you there. Well, it shouldn't be long. So you're a web engineer at ASOS. Can you tell us a little bit about the team that you're with, like who is in there, sort of kind of numbers, personalities, engineering types, what's going on?
Yeah, so we're quite a small team. This is my second team since I rejoined ASOS. So they're a really modest, humble, incredibly talented group of engineers and QAs. So we have a lead engineer, senior engineer, a senior QA and a midweight QA, and then myself, sort of tagging along with the rest of the team. It's interesting actually, because as part of my course, I think they're a bit tired of me having to do so much analysis on them. As part of it, I've actually had to do a lot of personality tests. I get feedback from them. So we're probably the most self-aware team in web because I keep doing these tests. So actually, if you know anything about Honey and Mumford's learning styles, a lot of my team are quite big reflectors. So they care about data, they're theoretical, but they really like to stop and think about things. I'm not really like that. I'm a lot more big picture. I'm what we call an activist. So I'm about linking people in and sort of driving things forward. My attention to detail isn't always amazing, which is an engineer's bit of a shame. For this, I thought I need to make it applicable to the reflectors in my team, if that
makes perfect sense. And I think that the fact that you've done a lot of this groundwork really with your teammates, because they are right now, right? I know you want to become a manager, but you really are part of the team.
I'm part of it.
And they respect you for that. And they're like, cool, sure, we want to reflect. You got another thing, let's go through it. It's quite nice that you've got that culture in the team, because not all teams in engineering, especially software engineering, are like that.
Oh no, they're incredibly supportive. I know I'm really, really lucky, and I try and pay it forward by sort of sharing any best practice that I've learned, sharing any methods and models that I've learned, and doing sort of fun tech sharing things. So this almost formed part of my work on PETALS and sort of promoting that.
Cool. Just before we jump into the PETALS part, I just want to check as well. What's the DEI sort of angle of your team? What's the mix like that? Is it a good gender balance?
Yeah, really, really good. We are more skewed towards female.
Nice.
We have great diversity. We have a pretty good ethnic diversity as well. So, we're pretty good for diversity, which I'm really proud of. So,
do you think that helps the culture a little bit as well? The fact that you are a lot more diverse than some other teams you might have seen across tech in your time?
Yeah, absolutely. I am I was a community lead for women in tech. It plays a big part of my role at ASOS because the value in having people from different genders, different backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds as well, that brings a new perspective. Having a huge variety of people in web is part of what makes it so open. Everyone's voice is heard, and I noticed that a lot in my team as well. So it's definitely the most sort of supportive and open department I've ever been part of.
Lovely.
So I think that definitely plays a role.
It rings a bell. I mean, just for full context, I've worked in that web platform before, and I remember it's such a positive environment to be around. People are generally quite caring, they're open, they're vocal, and not in a bad way either. You're gonna get some haters and comments, but it's generally for the better anyway. So it's healthy in my eyes.
Yeah, really lucky. It's a great team.
I love it. Cool. So let's go back to the what's it? The great program. What should you call it again? Sorry.
Yeah, Growing Greatness program.
Growing Greatness program. Where did it come into you where you're like, well, I need to look at the team sort of culture? Was there a requirement from your perspective, or is it just something you went, you know what, I'm going to do this? It sounds like I'm into this thing.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a bit of a mix, really. So I'm sort of halfway through this program now, where the module is focused on relationships.
Okay.
And as part of it, I get like assignments that I have to complete. So they normally are on the job and then based on theoretical knowledge as well. So I tend to do some sort of on the job activity and then gather evidence and sort of report that back and talk about the models and theories that I use. So for this module in particular, I had to do a presentation and chair a meeting.
Right.
So, I mean, chairing a meeting, working in Agile, like I do it a lot because we all, we rota our responsibilities and our ceremonies. So it's something I'm quite used to, and I'm fairly comfortable presenting because I've done it quite a lot with women in tech and teaching. But I thought, how can I make this as a bit of a thank you to my team as well? How can I make this beneficial for them, but also promote something that I really care about and that, the wider web and tech teams really care about as well, which is how I thought, okay, we haven't been great at doing any sort of health check. How can I make part of our culture and sort of promote that as well? So that's what led me to wanting to talk about PETALS.
Oh, lovely. So it's kind of instigated a little bit by the program, but your, again, observations like, you know what, I still need to give something back to them as well. Can't just keep taking as part of the team.
Feedback. Well, I was like, here you go. Here's something I can actually give you back.
And then we're like, yeah, sure. It's not a completely selfless gesture.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I gather not every engineering team really see the value in this sort of stuff. How did you take it that angle? Because I know everyone's different, right?
Yeah, and I think, with my team being so open and so caring, I think this was a natural thing that they were going to be able to take on, and we were all going to be able to take on, but we just hadn't considered it, and we hadn't considered the benefit of it as a team. We hadn't sort of stopped and acknowledged that. Yeah. So I pulled together a presentation sort of based on the write-up that you'd done and the way that you described it. And I talked through, I guess, first of all, how beneficial health checks can be, not only for us all being, happy as a team, but also the productivity and ultimately like the commercial aspects of being good at, being happy, being productive, producing good work. It's all cyclical. So I thought what I probably need to do is explain what this is, what the benefits are, and also demonstrate that within a team of reflectors, we will then have a clear data set that we can pull from and notice trends in. So that was the sort of approach I went with the presentation. And it was really well received.
All of our used the data element to get their hook as well. Because I think geeks might have a tendency to go, where's the data? Where's the data? What are you doing with the data first? Yeah. Where is it?
For people that are very pragmatic and like to reflect on information that's given to them, that's what we need to do. Yeah. So that's where that sort of came from.
But you touched on the fact there's a commercial element to this, right? A happy team or a productive team in a way and getting things done. Was there any pushback or concerns around that? Because I think that some engineers, haters especially, will go, yeah, you're not doing it for us, you do it for management.
Yeah, not really. No, I think, ultimately we can lose track of this sometimes as engineers. I think we're building stuff for the customer. We're building stuff so that we can give the customers a good experience and also to commercially benefit the business. So that's part of it. I actually remember I used to work in human resources, and a colleague once said to me, one of the most important attributes in someone who works in HR is commercial sense, because you are doing this for the people, but you're doing it for the people to benefit them, their workload, and the business.
Yeah.
So that's sort of in the background, but yeah, they were super open to it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you booked in the presentation, went through it. Well, how big was the audience actually? Was it just your team, or did you say the whole?
Just my team and my manager. So
a bit more intimate, so you could have that conversation rather than just going, look at this and walk away.
Yeah, exactly. And it is something I'd like to probably deliver to the wider web team, because I think it is really important. But yeah, it was a really nice sort of way to introduce this topic in a smaller way.
What kind of responses and questions to get during the presentation?
I think it was, first of all, they wanted to know, which I didn't realise was the A, what the A stood for. So
Of course, yeah.
we were like, hang on. Then we realised. I think they wanted to understand like how we were going to use this. That was the biggest thing. Like, how can we? Okay, that is an amazing idea. How can we integrate that into a team? And how can we, as an agile team, have a lot of ceremonies? How can this slot in a good way? So that was the main thing, really.
What did you go for with your implementing it with the team? What works for you so far?
So I actually, like the day after, so as part of this sort of assignment I'd had from the Growing Greatness program, I had to do the presentation and then had to chair the meeting. So I thought, right, I'm going to continue the theme. I'm going to chair a retrospective, but do a PETALS themed, like health check retrospective, because we'd just gone through it the day before. I was like, right, this is a perfect chance to sort of put this into practice and show the benefit of it in practice. So that's the approach I decided to take. So I downloaded our data, set it up on a Miro board, and then we made suggestions about where we could see trends. And then we talked it through as a group, and it was amazing. It was such a good retrospective.
Did everyone feel similar as well? Because I think I'd be like you, but that went so well. And did you get any comments afterwards going, yeah, that was quite good actually?
Yeah, it was literally, I mean, we came away with a lot of thoughts, a lot of like really tangible, quick wins that we could do to make the team like happier. And although, I don't think that's necessarily an issue with our team, luckily, but it's how can we maximize on that now we know where our maybe gaps are. And as with everything on my course, I had to ask for feedback. So I did actually get proper feedback saying that they found it valuable. And we all agreed as a team that how we're actually going to use it now is to complete the health check every retrospective, so every fortnight. And then we're going to try and do a health check retro every fourth, so effectively every 2 months.
Okay. So yeah, 2 months, and then you'll do a checkpoint and what can we do about it as well?
But the great thing is that we'll have the data. So if we feel like there's been, there's something glaringly obvious, we can use it as a quick tool to say, okay, this retrospective, let's do a health check one. Let's try and work out where these patterns are coming from. So that's the approach I think we'll take moving forward.
Interesting. So I like the fact you're reducing the cadence, because I think you can get into that monotonous mode of retros going, oh, I'm not feeling the value or the joy or the benefit of doing that model. But you are keeping that accountability going. No, every 2 months, we're going to look back at our data and see what has changed, and do we need to catch it before it's too late?
And it's a good chance to review the actions, the things that we thought of last time. Are we making these little changes that are going to really benefit us? And also, like, how are we feeling as a result of that? So I think it's important to build in these checkpoints, and then we can use it a bit more reactively if we need to.
Love that. Yeah, it's something I'm struggling to get right. The cadence of dealing with the PETALS scores, because I think I've seen some teams that do it every 2 weeks, and there's not many outputs from the conversation or outcomes. Okay, just keep an eye on that, because you don't want to get into a rhythm of no takeaways, but also don't leave it too long, because otherwise you're not going to catch it, and that's the joy of a nice quick snapshot, which is why I use that language all the time. It's a snapshot of time.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's also tying in the sort of habit stacking of completing this health check when we are about to do a retro. I think that's beneficial, just to ensure we are capturing that data as well. So
that's cool. You also mentioned Miro, and I know we are Miro people. What did you? I just want to get a visual of how this was organised in my head. I know you can't demonstrate very easily, but was there any obvious suggestions on how that might be organised in a Miro board, or a physical board if necessary as well?
Yeah, so I downloaded the data, so I also had the graph in front of us, like the actual data in front of us, and then I created a bit of, I guess, a more traditional retrospective in terms of okay, what are we maybe doing well in relation to the different areas? What could we be doing better in relation to the different areas? So almost had what you'd say probably typical retrospective columns that were okay, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, or what could we be doing better? And then from that sort of gathered the actions from there. So I used it as a bit of because we don't have a huge amount of data right now, So I think as we get forward, I think we'll be able to use maybe more of the actual visuals and sort of go after that. So it was sort of extracting it the best way possible for this one.
Love it. I like that. I know I'd love to see, like, I know God probably didn't share it publicly, but I'd love to see the actual outcomes from that, just to see some examples, right? Of like what kind of actions do you have around learning, for example? Is there anything that you can suggest that would be an obvious one, or was it a bit specific?
I think there were some things that were quite specific, but I think overall having that conversation made us realise that we're very good at making time for each other with learning, but we need to be better at encouraging each other to go do learning. It's one thing making the time and saying like, oh, you know, we're going to commit to tech develops, we're going to commit to this. But actually it's saying, okay, make sure, what have you signed up for? What are you doing? And sort of taking an active interest in that. And not just me constantly talking about my program and my learning, like actually, whatever it is.
It's not me, it's about you.
I want to know what you're doing. So yeah, that's the sort of approach we came out with.
Cool. All right, sounds like it's really landed well with the team, and it's lovely to hear that journey went on to kind of introduce it and get them to buy into it. What would you say were there any areas where you went, this could be better? So like you mentioned the average point, like what does the A stand for? Was there anything you thought, actually, it would be nice if we could change a few things?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe having like a guideline as to when the data is enough to start this, almost having a bit of a, we're going to have a target of doing this health check retrospective in this amount of time. Therefore, the team, we need to start having this. This is what it is. Start completing the checks and almost ramping it up to that. That would be beneficial.
Like what would be a good threshold to go, we've got enough data to make this a good conversation?
I think it would be beneficial to at least have probably like 4 weeks worth of data, ideally like 8 weeks worth of data, because I think obviously like people are on holiday, people are off sick, you know, just there's a lot of other factors that go into it.
Very sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives you enough data, and also it's then sort of a bit of a launch. It's something to sort of, if you even started with a presentation, filled in the data, and at the end you said, this is when we're going to do the health check retrospective, that could be a nice way of sort of launching this within a team that aren't necessarily aware of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I think like you've done it really well. You kind of introduced the concepts first, then went straight into a session to use it, which was like within a day, which is really nice because it's quite hot and relevant. But maybe at the start of that introduction, you go, right, this is the concept. Let's talk about how we're going to do it. And here's some suggestions, maybe, but ultimately it's our way of doing it. If we want to do it monthly, 2 weekly, weekly, whatever. But like your point there, when we've got enough data to make it a useful conversation.
Yeah. And that for me, like, that was probably a little bit more rushed because I did have a deadline with my course. So we got a lot of that conversation. Yeah, exactly. That me, yes. Like, we did get a lot of useful information, but I know like the next one's going to be even better and even more useful because we'll have that data behind it as well.
It's a good idea. I like that. Lots of cool takeaways, Laura.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed it. It's right up my street. So
my street. I like that. Yeah. And with your aspirations to be more engineering manager anyway, and sort of, you know, get into that team observation and support model, it should be for that. But I've said to a few people, don't just do it because you feel like it would help. But look for the flags that go, oh man, we don't know if we're healthy. Let's just do a benchmark and see if it is or not. Because I've seen some teams that just kind of get to that point where they're constantly rating 4s and 5s. You're like, do you need this anymore? You probably don't. You better in your back pocket for when things get a bit messy again.
Yeah, and it's that reactive approach sometimes where, say, build into the cadence, but if you need to, then it's easy to set up and easy to do. So. And
you said at the start, like, you're more strategic thinking, more forward thinking, whereas I myself am more just in time mode, like, let's bring it in now, but having the personality and the team culture to go, no, we're just doing it tomorrow. And what? Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm super lucky that my team are really open and really supportive. So they were like, yeah, let's do it. It's good.
You're one of my PETALS ambassadors, Laura. I love this. It's going to keep us going. Stickers in the post.
Thank you.